Hey crew, it's Ben and I am back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Charles Haanel. This is the Master Key System Part 6. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the different topics that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time you get lost in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above and the box below, along with the original source material, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I stand where I do and say the things that I do. A particular note today is probably going to be the Infinite Integrations playlist, where we discuss many of these points in greater detail. With that being said, let us dive in and continue our exploration of the Master Key System with Part 6. Part 6 tells of the unlimited possibilities of the universal mind, which is the life principle of every atom in existence, and explains how this mind is differentiated in form. It tells of the most marvelous piece of mechanism which has ever been constructed, and tells how the effect which will be produced depends entirely upon the mechanism to which it is attached. We're going to go ahead and pause right here and talk for just a second about the Trinity, because it will be relevant. The body is the first part of the Trinity. It is the temple which you navigate in 5D space. What makes that navigation happen is your soul or your mind, which are the same things, and why we are stopping right here. It is the individualized piece of the universal mind, which is God, that is given to you for the lessons which you are here specifically to learn. You make the decisions for the temple, but the thing that allows the temple to do the things that you decide that you want it to do is the Holy Spirit. It is the all-pervading, omnipresent force of existence. It is what holds together everything. It is the fundamental electromagnetic harmonics that is life. You can take a small measure of that through the use of your soul, directing those energies to manifest in your life the things which you want. If you would like a greater explanation of that, I once again refer you to the Infinite Integrations playlist, where we talk about that in some extensive detail. How the effect which will be produced depends entirely upon the mechanism to which it is attached. It tells why we should all become familiar with the mechanisms so as to secure the effects which we desire. The power to which it can be attached is unlimited, and we can, accordingly, secure any effect we desire when we become familiar with the mechanism and understand how to make the proper connections. An understanding of this part will enable you to plan courageously and execute fearlessly, because you will have come into a knowledge of the source of all power, and this will determine your course in life, bringing you into contact with all that is strongest and best and most desirable. That is true. An understanding, right, will indeed allow you to plan courageously, execute fearlessly. Once you have made the decision that I want this in my life, and you start taking the steps to achieve that, you become courageous in it. You become fearless in it. And so that is true. Introduction, Part 6. This part will give you an excellent understanding of the most wonderful piece of mechanism which has ever been created. A mechanism whereby you may create for yourself health, strength, success, prosperity, or any other condition which you desire. Necessities are demands, and demands create action, and actions bring about results. The process of evolution is constantly building our tomorrows out of our todays. Individual development, like universal development, must be gradual with an ever-increasing capacity and volume. The knowledge that if we infringe upon the rights of others, we become moral thorns and find ourselves entangled at every turn of the road should be an indication that success is contingent upon the highest moral ideal, which is the greatest good to the greatest number. And then that is true too, right? The knowledge that if we infringe upon the rights of others, we become moral thorns and find ourselves entangled at every turn of the road is truth, right? If you are imposing your morals upon other people, it is necessarily going to cause conflict. You can stand in your morals absolutely unfettered. Pressing your morals upon someone else creates entanglements, and it makes it very difficult for you to navigate. You become consumed by the measure cup that you use, right? The thing that you use to measure is what will be used against you. And generally speaking, when you are judging other people, you are recognizing something in them that you don't like within yourself. And unless you are conscious of that fact, it will negatively reverberate through your efforts. You talking about this person making this decision repeatedly is you mirroring your desire that that be a different result, even within yourself. And generally speaking, you don't recognize the similarities between what you are complaining about and what you actually incorporate within yourself. So you should be looking to be as moral as you can be. Stand in your morals, but don't necessarily judge other people. Don't necessarily push your judgments upon other people, because that will reverberate. Aspiration, desire, and harmonious relations constantly and persistently maintained will accomplish results. The greatest hindrance is erroneous and fixed ideas. Always remain teachable. That is one of the basic tenets by which I live. It is not one of the laws of creation, but it is indeed something which you should pay attention to. There is always the possibility that you're wrong. Even if it is something you are 99% sure of, there's still that 1%. You should never be 100% firm. Even in the most obvious things, there may be a key component that you are missing in your formulation of that 100%. And so always maintain within your mind that while you believe you are correct, there is the option for correction. Always keep the option for correction open. Be in tune with eternal truth, and we must possess poise and harmony within. In order to receive intelligence, the receiver must be in tune with the transmitter. Thought is a product of mind, and mind is creative, but this does not mean that the universal will change its modus operandi to suit us or our ideas. But it does mean that we can come into harmonious relationship with the universal. And when we have accomplished this, we may ask anything to which we are entitled, and the way will be made plain. We have a tendency as humans to want to force our way regardless of the situation. Sometimes we see this door and we're like, man, I really got to open that door. But that door is not even meant for you. You are trying to push open something that is not for you. You need to find the doors that are for you. Thought is a product of your mind. I say soul. Mind and soul to me are melded. They are the exact same thing. The part that makes the decisions is you. It is your mind. It is your soul. And that is creative. It is a part of the universal. But just because you desire something does not mean that it needs to appear to you quickly, right? In the timing in which you wish it. Sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes the answer is not yet. Learn to accept those answers just as readily as you will accept a yes. Sometimes your idea will actually wind up leading to your detriment. I really want this job. Well, it turns out that those people who were running that corporation were about to be investigated for fraud. But that door remained closed to you, and you tried to force it open. And if you would have forced it open and taken that place, you would have been investigated just like they are. Those are very real things that can happen, and so you should be correctable. You should be understanding that just because you desire it does not mean that it is absolutely the best for you. I know, talking about this, you would think that you deciding would be the best thing, but it is not always the case. Sometimes the answer is yes. sometimes it is no, and sometimes it is not now. And all three of those answers you need to take with the same amount of equanimity. Part 6. The universal mind is so wonderful that it is difficult to understand its utilitarian powers and possibilities and its unlimited creative effects. Whenever you see universal mind, or we say universal mind, that is God. Whenever it says mind without the universal, that is your soul. He doesn't tend to get into the religious parts of this. I do, right? To me, everything is intrinsically part of God, because God is the all-pervading, omniscient force that is holding together the very fabric of reality. If not for God, there would be nothing, and so it is impossible to separate anything from God. That's too much for some people, and that is fine. Be blessed elsewhere. We have found that this mind is not only all intelligence, but all subject. That is the universal mind. All substance would be the universal mind. How then is it to be differentiated in form? How are we to secure the effect which we desire? Ask any electrician what the effect of electricity will be, and he will reply that electricity is a form of motion, and its effect will depend upon the mechanism to which it is attached. Upon this mechanism will depend whether we shall have heat, light, power, music, or any other marvelous demonstrations of power to which this vital energy has been harnessed. That is true. The one force can have a myriad of effects. That's what we're saying here, right? You driving your intentionality into a desire will produce an effect. That effect is governed by the 8 laws of creation and will happen one way or another. What happens is dependent upon how those 8 laws of creation are utilized in your life. You are using those powers even if you do not realize it. And because you don't realize it, you are not able to affect the change as you wish. Once you are understanding the basic fundamentals of the physics of karma and how manifestation works, then it is easier to direct it in the correct manner. To say, I want to turn on the light switch as opposed to the radio. What effect can be produced by thought? The reply is that thought is mind in motion, just as wind is air in motion. And its effect will depend entirely on the mechanism to which it is attached. Here, then, is the secret of all mental power. It depends entirely on the mechanism which we attach. What is this mechanism? You know something of the mechanism which has been invented by Edison, Bell, Marconi, and other electrical wizards, by which place and space and time have become only figures of speech. But did you ever stop to think that the mechanism which has been given you for transforming the universal, omnipresent, potential power was invented by a greater inventor than Edison? We are accustomed to examining the mechanism of the implements which we use for tilling the soil, and we try to get an understanding of the mechanism of the motor car which we drive, but most of us are content to remain in absolute ignorance of the greatest piece of mechanism which has ever come into existence, the brain of a man. Let us examine the wonders of this mechanism. Perhaps we shall thereby get a better understanding of the various effects of which it is the cause. In the first place, there is the great mental world in which we live and move and have our being. This world is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. It will respond to our desire in direct ratio to our purpose and faith. That is true. That is the law of response. The purpose must be in accordance with the law of our being. That is, it must be creative or constructive. That is not true. Our faith must be strong enough to generate a current of sufficient strength to bring our purpose into manifestation. As thy faith is, so be it unto thee, bears the stamp of scientific test. So, when I said no, right, the purpose must be in accordance with the law of our being, I'm not sure exactly how that would fit into the eight laws of creation, right? The law of our being, I'm not sure even really goes in there. But it must be creative or constructive is absolutely not true. Life is a harmonic. There is a pendulum. It swings both positive and negative, regardless of your interaction with it. You can choose to remain positive even when it swings negative, but that is mental alchemy. It is still swinging negative. You can invest your energy into destruction. That is possible. You can manifest terrible things into your life. That is possible. That is not creative or constructive. It can be used for creation or construction if you so choose after the events have happened due to mental alchemy, but they are still destructive. The use of drugs, for the most part, are destructive. And I say for the most part because life is not about exclusion. There are uses for most of the recreational things that we have, even recreation being that, right? Cannabis is a wonderful example. It can be used medicinally. I use it for pain management instead of opioids. It can be used habitually to the detriment of yourself. That is an indisputable fact. People do it all of the time. They refuse to progress because they refuse to let go of the plant. You are the deciding factor in that. Whether it is creative or destructive is dependent upon you and the direction that you are focused upon. If you are focused upon the positive, then the results will most likely be creative or constructive. But if you are focused upon the negative, the results will almost certainly be destructive. That is an important distinction. That is something that I have to point out here. Now, your faith being strong enough to generate a current of sufficient strength, that is true. If you are intentional and you are doing things intentionally, hopefully you are aligned with the positive. Especially if you're watching me. I am trying to show you in no uncertain terms that focusing on the positive brings positive into your life. That is one of the eight laws of creation, the law of attraction. Like attracts like. Things of a like nature tend to cluster. That is an immutable fact. As your faith is, so be it unto thee. And if you are investing your faith into, this is going to be a terrible day, it's going to be. This job sucks, it's going to suck. If you go into it saying that it is going to be a wonderful day, it doesn't matter how much shit gets thrown at you, none of it will stick. That is you. That is mental alchemy. That is your faith determining. It can be positive or negative. Bear that in mind, because if you are focusing on the negative, you will bear negative fruit. It is an immutable fact. The effects which are produced in the world without are the results of the action and reaction of the individual upon the universal. That is the process which we call thinking. The brain is the organ through which this process is accomplished. Think of the wonder of it all. Do you love music, flowers, literature, art, or are you inspired by the thought of ancient or modern genius? Remember, every beauty to which you respond must have its corresponding outline in your brain before you can appreciate it. I don't know. The effects produced in the world are the result of the action and reaction. Yes. It is the process we call thinking. Yes. The brain is the organ. Yes. Do you love flowers, music, flowers, literature? Are you inspired by thought, ancient or modern genius? Those are positive things, right? Every beauty which you must respond must have its corresponding outline in your brain before you can appreciate it. I don't know about the terminology there. You should be focusing on those things, right? You should be focusing on the beauty. You should be focusing on the positive. And if you are, then yes. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. There is not a single virtue or principle in the storehouse of nature which the brain cannot express. The brain is an embryonic world, ready to develop at any time as necessity may arise. If you can comprehend that this scientific truth and one of the wonderful laws of nature, it will be easier for you to get an understanding of the mechanism by which these extraordinary results are being accomplished. That is true, right? The brain is the creative force. the mind, the soul, the brain, all the same thing. You, as the individualized piece of divinity, making the decision is what creates the thing, whether it be positive or negative. That is also one of the mechanisms there. The nervous system has been compared to an electric circuit with its battery of cells in which force is originated, and its white matter to insulated wires by which the current is conveyed. It is through these channels that every impulse or desire is carried through the mechanism. Yeah. The spinal cord is the great motor and sensory pathway by which messages are conveyed to and from the brain. Then there is the blood supply plunging through the veins and arteries, renewing our energy and strength, the perfectly arranged structure upon which the entire physical body rests. And finally, the delicate and beautiful skin, clothing the entire mechanism in a mantle of beauty. Now, it is important to note here, right? We talk all of the time about the chakras. It is part of the fundamental harmonics of life. It is part of the manifestation video. It is in so many videos I can't even list them all. There are 7 internal chakras. They start at the base of your spine. I say start, they could start at the top just as well, but the base, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. And then there is one external one, which is the divine. The divine gives you information. The crown and the base receive that information. The third eye and the sacral direct that information. The throat and the solar plexus amplify that information. And the heart creates your desires out of it. The mechanism by which that happens is through the flow of electricity, through the current of the electromagnetic forces of creation. And it is allowed to flow through those 7 points by the fluid contained in your spinal column. You can consciously move your center of location up and down that, all the way into any one of those 7 chakras and even out into the divine through that column. It is a process that takes time, and you have to spend time in prayer, fasting, and meditation. You have to do the internal work. But that is the mechanism by which that happens. The blood supply, right, that is the spirit changing the things that you consume into the things that you need and dispensing them into your body. So it is all governed, however, by those 7 chakras. Those are the things that hold you together. Your legs and your feet are attached to the base. The entirety of the scalp and all of this is attached to the crown. Your hands are attached to the heart. All of these things have a part to play in what you do and who you are and how you navigate through this 5D space. If you would like more information on that, the Infinite Integrations playlist will get you there. This then is the temple of the living God, and the individual I is given control, and upon this understanding of the mechanism which is within his control will the result depend. That's why we started off with the Trinity, right? The body, the soul, and the spirit are intrinsic. They are something that have to be understood if you want this to work, at least in the way that I do it. There are other paths, there are other ways, other people can show you a different path. I'm here to show you the one that has worked for me. And that path is what I am talking about here. This is the temple of God. I've heard it my whole life and it never really clicked until recently. Right? I started talking about the body. I never really mentioned the temple. It really didn't click to me until a little bit later that this is literally the temple in which the spirit, the individualized piece of divinity, or the soul, the individualized piece of divinity that is you, that is inhabiting the temple, and you get to navigate that through 5D space. The spirit allows that to happen. It's the part that changes your food into fuel and dispenses it into your blood. It is the part that takes the oxygen out of the air you breathe and dispenses it into the fingers. It is the part that makes the now turn into next. It is the part that allows it to happen, and you get to direct that. Your soul, the individualized piece of you that makes the decisions for the temple, gets to decide, I want this. And when you decide, I want this, and you correctly align your 7 chakras into the one external chakra, That is where manifestation happens. If you can project what you want through the column and the amplification and the directional devices into the heart and project that out into the divine about midway, then you can create things. Not out of nothing, that is one of the immutable laws of creation, but you get to call into existence something that already exists and bring it into your timeline. That is how manifestation works. Every thought sets the brain and cells in action. At first, the substance upon which the thought is directed fails to respond, but if the thought is sufficiently refined and concentrated, the substance finally yields and expresses perfectly. This influence of the mind can be exerted upon any part of the body, causing the elimination of undesirable effect. Yeah. Right, I talk all of the time about what I am doing with me, right? That is why this is so easy for me to explain, because I have walked a path, may not be the only path, but I have walked a path and it does work. I have affected physical change in my life. I don't know if I hit that already in here or not, but I have removed a cyst from my throat and I have healed my shoulder. If you go back through my videos, you can watch this happen. As I began to embrace this particular path and to do the things that we are talking about here, prayer, fasting, and meditation, and the directing of the Holy Spirit within myself, I have removed a cyst from my throat. I was not able to talk in this manner at all over a year ago, but like for the last 3 years. It is only through doing what I am relaying to you that I have affected that change. Now, that is the power of the Holy Spirit. I can take and move the consciousness through this stack, is what I call it, the 7 chakras. And when I started resting that Holy Spirit in my throat and intentionally working on healing it, the cyst was removed. It was not immediate. It did not happen overnight. It took a lot of work in vocal therapy. Now, the vocal therapy is more for making my vocal cords go back to where they were. For almost 3 years, I had a cyst pushing on them, and it stretched them out like you would a piece of plastic, right? If you take a piece of plastic and you stretch it out and you blow on it, it makes the noise like a kazoo. Well, if you stretch it too far and then you go back, you can't make it make sound. That's what happened to my throat. It stretched my vocal cords. The power of the Holy Spirit removed the cyst, and I am intentionally working on healing the throat. I was able to sing yesterday in my whole voice all the way through an entire song for like 10 takes. I put the song up knowing full well nobody's going to watch it, right? It is for the crew. But I was able to sing because of the changes that I am affecting in my life. That is a visible sign to you that this works. I've also been able to heal my shoulder. I had 2 surgeries on this shoulder. They rerouted some tendons. They held my shoulder in socket because it had come out. I had ripped it loose at work. And I was able to receive, after the surgery, about 80%. I can lift it about that high. And I had some flexibility, but not all of it. And I had some strength, but not all of it. And now I have it all. I have 100%. I can move it however I want. I have the strength back. That is through what we were talking about here. I sat, and it worked. I took the energy, I moved it to my heart, and I focused on healing things. Now, I work my way through the entire stack doing that. It is not just my throat that I am trying to do. I am effecting change through my entire body, and it's working. I can't even talk about some of it right now because other things depend upon it. But when that is pulled, when you get to see what I get to tell you of the other changes that are happening in my life, you won't believe it. It is one of those things you'll be like, oh, that's bullshit. It is true. Things are happening. You can do the exact same thing. The infinite integration system is how I did it. Working through those things in that particular order is how I manifested this change in my life, and it is a real change. This is telling you the same thing in a slightly different way. He doesn't get into the specifics of the chakras, or at least he hasn't so far. I do, because that's what worked for me. This may be a completely different path, and it may work for you in a completely different way. That's why we're going through these studies, to see and to discuss and to talk about things that worked for them and worked for me. Now, whether it worked for him, I don't know. But it did work for me. What I tell you did work for me. I can't convince you of that, so I don't even try. But I do have to tell you. And so I do, repeatedly. It may even get a little bit annoying hearing it, but that is because not everybody watches all the videos. Somebody may watch only this video, and they're like, wait, what? And so they fall back and they click on the Infinite Integrations playlist, and they're like, well, that's different. That's a whole new thing. Let me check that out, and it works. It has worked for other people. It is not just me, but I don't give other people's testimonies. They have to do that for themselves. A perfect conception and understanding of the laws governing in the mental world cannot fail to be of inestimable value in the transaction of business, as it develops the power of discernment and gives a clearer understanding and appreciation of facts. The man who looks within instead of without cannot fail to make use of the mighty forces which will eventually determine his course in life and so bring him into vibration with all that is best, strongest, and most desirable. Now, this is true, right? Looking within is prayer, fasting, and meditation. Making use of the mighty forces is moving your energy through the stack. And this will eventually determine, that is another important part. It is not immediate. It takes time if you are doing it correctly. You can probably manifest quicker. It is probably not a good idea because of the 8 laws of creation. I told you about my throat. It took time. You can witness that. My shoulder took time too. You can go back and find a video where I'm complaining about the fact that my shoulder hurts. What happened? That tendon that they rerouted went back to where it was supposed to be in the first place, and my shoulder tightened up on its own. It took a couple of weeks. For a couple of weeks, like I've got my mouse right here. You can see my arm do like this every once in a while. It's when I scroll down. Yeah, I couldn't hardly do that. Like, it was extremely painful for me to reach my arm out this far for a couple of weeks. But on the other side of that, when I worked through and kept manifesting in the manner in which I was doing, despite the pain that was it caused, it healed. And like, I'm not even talking about a little bit of healing. I'm talking about significant healing. 20% gain in function in my arm, from 80% back to 100% for the first time in 2 decades. That is a real thing. Attention, or concentration, is probably the most important essential in the development of mind culture. The possibilities of attention, when properly directed, are so startling that they would hardly appear credible to the uninitiated. The cultivation of attention is the distinguishing characteristic of every successful man or woman, and is the very highest personal accomplishment which can be acquired. The possibility, this hardly appearing credible, right? That is why I tell you I can't convince you, right? I can tell you, but I'm not here to convince you. I'm not even trying. I'm here to relay the information, and most people are not going to onboard it. They're going to hear that and they're going to dismiss it. They're going to say, no, you did not affect change in your life. You don't have to believe me. I am not here to convince you. I am here to tell you these things are possible. And when you do these things, people are not going to believe that you did them. Right? It will hardly appear credible to the uninitiated. Those who do not believe will never understand. The power of attention can be more readily understood by comparing it with a sunglass in which the rays of sunlight are focused. They possess no particular strength as long as the glass is moved about and the rays directed from one place to another. But let the glass be held perfectly still, and let their rays be focused on one spot for any length of time, and the effect will become immediately apparent. And now, that is talking about burning things with the sun, right? So that is quite an apt description of it, right? You're moving the light into a place where it burns away the imperfections. That is true, in large part. Now, whether the mechanics of it actually work out exactly like that, it's arguable, right? But that is what happens. I directed the light to the place where it was able to affect the change. It removed the negative from. That is something that did happen. And so, for the most part, that is true. Now, immediately apparent, that is true for the glass where you're directing the sun. It is a little bit less for what you are doing within yourself if you are doing it correctly. Right? We talked about the triangle, the how, the what, or the when. You get to choose one of those points. And why? Let me show you real quick. We'll use green. If we take this and we create, are y'all able to see that? Not really. Let's see if we got a different color here. Blue maybe? Let's see if blue will work. All right, so if we create a triangle like so, can y'all even see that? I'll do this. Bam. See the triangle right here? Now you got the how, you got the what, and you got the when, right? You get to choose one of those points. And the reason why you choose that one point is if you choose just the how, well, the what and the when create a window of opportunity. And that window of opportunity is like a funnel. And every opportunity that comes within the range of those openings are funneled down into the how. But if you try to hold the when and the what, then that funnel of opportunity gets really, really tiny because there is only one point by which it can be collected. That is the physical mechanics of why you only hold on to one point, is to keep that funnel of opportunity open just as wide as you possibly can, because what you want may come to you in an unexpected way. And if you are trying to control 2 points, then you are more than likely narrowing the ability for that correct manifestation to come into that funnel. If you try to hold on to all 3 points, you close off that funnel completely. It is not even possible for it to show up. Find the one point. I manifest abundance. I don't manifest money. I say I want what God has intended for me in the plan of abundance to appear. That is how I manifest. I don't say when and I don't say how. I give the what. I want abundance. However it is defined. Now, I have an abundance of health these days. I have an abundance of love these days. I have an abundance of growth these days. And that is because I only chose the one point, and I left that funnel of opportunity open for whatever possibility can possibly be caught and funneled down to my what. That's the mechanics. That is why we talked about that the other day, and I wanted to go ahead and make sure whenever we had another opportunity to point that out. And this is a good one because he is talking about focusing it, right? About the sunglass focusing the sunlight. It is the exact same way with your intentions. So the power of thought. Let power be dissipated by scattering the thought from one object to another. And no result is apparent but focus. This power through intention or concentration on any single purpose for any length of time, and nothing becomes impossible. Just remember, hold on to one point, and that is true. A very simple remedy for a very complex situation, some will say. All right, try it. You who have had no experience in concentrating the thought on a definite purpose or object. Choose any single object and concentrate your attention on it for a definite purpose for even 10 minutes. You can do it. The mind will wander a dozen times, and it will be necessary to bring it back to the original purpose. That is creating mental discipline. And each time, the effect will have been lost. And at the end of the 10 minutes, nothing will have been gained, because you have not been able to hold your thought steadily to the purpose. It is, however, through attention that you will finally be able to overcome obstacles of any kind that appear in your path, onward and upward. And the only way to acquire this wonderful power is by practice. Practice makes perfect, as in this as in anything else. Yes, make sure that you are doing it diligently, right? I tell you diligence all the time. Prayer, fasting, and meditation, diligently. That I do my prayers every single morning, right? I get up, I drink my coffee, and then I go walk my dogs. And when I'm walking my dogs, I pray. I pray for me, I pray for all my neighbors, I pray for you, and I pray for people that I don't even like. I pray that everybody comes to a better understanding of God. I pray that your dreams are fulfilled. I pray that everybody gets to rise up. I pray that everybody who wants to rise gets to rise. I pray for peace, love, forgiveness, freedom, and prosperity every single day for every single person on the entirety of the planet. And I name people that I do not agree with and pray for them specifically. By practicing that diligence, I have become more effective. I meditate on the same walk. I do what I call walking in the oneness. I activate the power of my mind where I can see the subtle fields, and then I walk in the absence of thought, merely observing the things around me and not even really contemplating them, just allowing them to happen, and I get inspiration through that. That is diligence. Every single day, regardless of the situation, I'm doing that. Even on the days when it is raining too hard to walk, I still pray for y'all. Even on the days when it is so bitterly cold that it is hard to walk, I still pray for y'all. Diligence is just as important as prayer, fasting, and meditation. Doing it every day, making sure that you are doing it correctly every day, making sure that you focus your thoughts positively. It will not be natural to you when you begin. It is a process by which you grow. And the growth of the process is what brings the fruits to you. It allows the manifestation to happen. Diligence is just as important as prayer, fasting, and meditation. In order to cultivate the power of attention, bring a photograph with you to the same seat, in the same room, in the same position as heretofore. Examine it closely for at least 10 minutes. Note the expression of the eyes, the form of the features, the clothing, the way the hair is arranged. In fact, note every detail shown on the photograph carefully. Now, cover it and close your eyes and try to see it mentally. If you can see every detail perfectly and can form a good mental image of the photograph, you are to be congratulated. If not, repeat the process until you can. And this is where I do the meme again. I have aphantasia. It is I don't know what to call it. It's not really a disease. It's more like an affliction, I guess, where I cannot visually see anything. I can close my eyes and I get this. It is black and white, and it is a field of that. Recently, I have been able to affect change in that, but that is something brand new to me. I cannot picture a face. It is not possible for me right now. It may be in the future. I am trying to manifest that. Those things take time. The fact that I can change the gray of the black and white individuals into red, and then into yellow, and then into orange, or into orange and then into yellow, like, that is something new. And that is a wonderful thing. That is me manifesting the healing. But I still can't look at a photograph and close my eyes and see the photograph. I can't picture a box or a blade of grass. You will not be hindered if that is the same for you. Now, most of you, like 90+% of you, can do that. You can close your eyes and at least envision something. You can see a face, you can see grass, you can see the box. You can work with that to develop your discipline. It is probably even more effective, right? That is probably a thing. I can't say for certain because I haven't walked it for certain, but it is most likely that if you can do that, you probably can do it more effectively than I can. That should be an encouragement for you because I have affected change without the ability to do that. It is not a necessary step, but it is an extra tool that you have that I don't. Use that tool, right? I say this part for the people who are like me, the less than 10% of people out there who cannot visualize anything. That is a real thing. In the same way, when I talk about being left-handed, it's for left-handed people because we are 3% of the population, right? Just because you are different and were created differently doesn't mean that you cannot achieve the things of the spiritual nature in the same way that other people can. Even if you have aphantasia, you can affect change in your life. I can attest to that. This step is simply for the purpose of preparing the soil. In part 7, we shall be ready to sow the seed. It is by such exercises that that you will finally be able to control your mental moods, your attitude, your consciousness. And that is true. I practice the discipline of manifestation and conceptualization in place of visualization as diligently as I do my walk, as diligently as I do my prayers and my meditation. You're going to have to do that too. Even if you can visualize, you're still going to have to practice. And if you can't, you hold the conception just as hard as you would hold the picture. It is through these exercises that you will be able to learn to control your moods, your attitude, and your consciousness. That is true. Great organizers are learning to withdraw from the multitude more and more, that they may have more time for planning, thinking, and generating the right mental moods. Successful businessmen are constantly demonstrating the fact that it pays to keep in touch with the thoughts of other successful businessmen. That is also true. You should surround yourself with people who are like-minded. You are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. They have influence on you, and you have influence on them, and those habits which they exhibit will wear themselves out on you. So if you are hanging around with people who are not aligned with your greater purpose, you will never achieve your greater purpose, no matter how hard you try. You have to shape your environment just the way that you shape your mind, and that means sometimes you're going to lose people who are important to you. There are people who are part of your life who are holding you back. That doesn't mean that you hate them. That doesn't mean that you never associate with them, but you're going to have to associate with them a lot less. You're going to have to decide that your future, your success as a spiritual representative of the divine is more important than fitting in with the people whom you enjoy. Surround yourself and keep in contact with the thoughts of other successful people. A single idea may be worth thousands of dollars, and those ideas can only come to those who are receptive, who are prepared to receive them, who are in a successful frame of mind. Not really. Once again, it is possible to manifest negativity. It is possible to manifest things that are destructive to you. If you are in the game, which if you don't know, the game is selling dope. If you are in the game, you can manifest money. You can manifest being successful in selling the drugs. But that doesn't mean that it is a positive thing. But you're still successful in it, right? That idea of selling drugs can be worth thousands of dollars. That doesn't mean it's a positive thing. They can come to you if you're receptive, yes, but that doesn't mean you have to be in a successful frame of mind. Selling drugs is not a successful frame of mind, right? It's just not. So you may think it is. You may think it's the option to get you where you need to be. And while it can be a tool, you should be discarding that tool just as rapidly as you possibly can, because there is nobody in the game that is for you. Nobody. Doesn't matter how hard they ride for you. You can all go out and commit atrocities. But as soon as they get in trouble, they will flip on you. That is a truth. Men are learning to place themselves in harmony with the universal mind. They are learning the unity of all things. They are learning the basic methods and principles of thinking, and this is changing conditions and multiplying results. They are finding that circumstances and environment follow the trend of mental and spiritual progress, and they find that growth follows knowledge, action follows inspiration, opportunity follows perception, always the spiritual first, then the transformation into the infinite and illimitable possibilities of achievement. Yeah. As the individual is but the channel for the differentiation of the universal, these possibilities are necessarily inexhaustible. You are a channel for the differentiation of the universal. You are here as an individualized piece of the universal being, which is God. And possibilities are necessarily inexhaustible. There is no lack. There is only the illusion thereof. Nature is abundant. You have to work for it. You have to work for it. You have to work for it. Thought is the process by which we may absorb the spirit of power and hold the result in our inner consciousness until it becomes a part of our ordinary consciousness. The method of accomplishing this result by the persistent practice of a few fundamental principles, as explained in this book, is the master key, which unlocks the storehouse of universal truth. And that is what I am attempting to explain, right? He has a path. That path may work for you. I have a path that is aligned the same but slightly different. So at best parallel, right? You putting your energy into the path is the determinant on whether it works. Just because I have this path and it works for me doesn't mean that it will for you. You may need Mr. Haanel's path. You may need Napoleon Hill's path. You may need someone else's path. But it is better to know that all of these paths exist. It is better to have clarification upon the paths. I believe that the clarification that I give is useful. But that doesn't mean that it has to be for you. I can be corrected in things, and you should be able to be corrected in things too. And so you have to hold the possibility that what you know for a certainty that has worked for you may not for someone else. There are many master keys. He is giving you one, I am giving you one, and they are similar, but they are not exactly the same. These two great sources of human suffering at present are bodily disease and mental anxiety. These may be readily traced to the infringement of some natural law. This is, no doubt, owing to the fact that so far, knowledge has largely remained partial. But the clouds of darkness which have accumulated through long ages are beginning to roll away, and with them, many of the miseries that attend imperfect information. Whether or not bodily disease is a manifestation of your mental state is highly subjective and debatable. It is entirely possible, but not fundamental fact. That is something that I differ greatly. Right? Now, anxiety, for the most part, is you choosing it. That's a little bit much for some people, right? You choose depression and anxiety more often than not. What do you mean, Pitt? That is offensive. I have anxiety. I have depression. I have to take these medicines. Are you taking responsibility for working through the fundamental root causes of those things? If you know I have depression, right? If you state that about yourself, you're creating that for yourself, for one. But if you know that you have a tendency towards depression, once you are aware that you are depressed, because when you're really depressed, it is a state that happens to you. Somebody else has to come up and say, hey, bro, when's the last time you ate something? When's the last time you took a shower? When's the last time you took care of yourself? When's the last time you exercised? Somebody else points it out to you almost all the time. Sometimes you find it yourself, but generally speaking, somebody has to point out to you, hey, you're not yourself. But once you are aware of the fact, even if it is a self-realization, you're aware of the fact, hey, I'm in a state of depression. It becomes your responsibility to cure that. That involves, sometimes, receiving medication. Most of the time, it shouldn't. Most of the time, it is situational. And if you are in a situational depressive state, the medication is going to do absolutely nothing for you. What will do something for you is the fundamental understanding of what is causing that state. Once you are aware, this issue bothers me. This thing that happened in my childhood causes me great distress. What you need to do is go visit that issue intentionally. Go sit down and pick it the fuck apart. Go through every single second of it. Go through whatever it was that happened and feel every single emotion fully. Anger, rage, jealousy, sadness, pain, whatever it is, feel it fully, and then let that shit go. and never go back and pick it up again. Because if you are making the choice to go back and pick at this scab, not to heal it, but just so that you can receive sympathy or the drugs or whatever it may be, if you are going back to this thing that happened 6 months, 2 years, 15 years ago, if you're going back to that one event and intentionally picking it up, you are choosing to be depressed. You are choosing to remain in a melancholy state. That is a choice that you are making. Not if it happens to you and you are not doing it intentionally. But if you are choosing, right, you know that this is a cause of distress, and you are choosing to go back and pick it up, then you are choosing to be depressed. Anxiety is slightly different, but pretty close to the same thing. If you know that this situation is giving you anxiety, there is something coming, and I am anxious about it. Well, go and sit intentionally and pick it apart. Go through every single step of what could possibly happen, and then choose what is the most likely, and then make a plan. If this thing happens, here is how I am going to respond, and then let that shit go. And don't go and pick it up again. Don't say, well, maybe I need to read. No, you've already made a plan for that. And that plan may not be perfect, but it gives you a starting point in which you can deal with it. There are people who need the medication. I hold that even though there are some psychologists that don't. Sometimes the state is upon you, and you need the medication to help chemically balance you back to the point where you can make these decisions. But if you are capable of understanding this is an issue, then you have to be capable of understanding that you are choosing to do that issue. All right, I probably stepped on your toes enough with that. Let's do it to something else. That a man can change himself, improve himself, recreate himself, control his environment, and master his own destiny is the conclusion of every mind that is wide awake, and the power of right thought and constructive action. Larson. Part 6, questions. What are some of the effects which can be produced by electricity? Heat, light, power, and music. Upon what do these various effects depend? Upon the mechanism to which the electricity is attached. What is the result of the action and interaction of the individual mind upon the universal? The conditions and experiences with which we meet. How may these conditions be changed? By changing the mechanism by which the universal is differentiated in form. What is this mechanism? The brain. How may it be changed? By the process we call thinking. Thoughts produce brain cells, and these cells respond to the corresponding thought in the universal. That is a slight misunderstanding. You can change the channels by which the electricity is conducted. That is true. But producing brain cells? Now, every one of your cells regenerates and replaces itself pretty much between 7 and 8 years. I wonder why that number's a thing. 138, the fundamental number of creation, right? The 8 being the important part of that. And so, in part, yes, you are replacing brain cells, but in part, you are really just creating new neural pathways. That is, we have a greater understanding of that now than they did back in the 1917, I think is when this was written, between the First and the Second World War. So we have a better understanding of that, and this is just a slight misunderstanding of the actual mechanics of things. Of what value is the power of concentration? It is the very highest personal accomplishment which can be acquired, and the distinguishing characteristic of every successful man or woman. How may it be acquired? By faithfully practicing the exercises outlined in this system. Why is this so important? Because it will enable us to control our thoughts, and since thoughts are causes, conditions must be effects. If we can control the cause, we can also control the effect. That is mostly true. Sorry. That is mostly true, but there are bottlenecks, things which are intrinsic to the lessons you are here to learn, And so not every condition is caused by your thought. It is sometimes caused by the agreements you made before you voluntarily incorporated on this plane. What is the changing conditions and multiplying results in the objective world? Men are learning the basic methods of constructive thinking. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night and day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Remember, this is the advice section. Remember, fully to understand grand and beautiful thought requires, perhaps, as much time as to conceive it. Yes, just because you have a thought does not mean that you understand it. That is why I told you to go and intentionally pick apart the depressive and anxiety states. You can have the thought and not understand the why. You need to understand the why. If you wish to enjoy the utmost practical benefit from the Master Key, go slowly. Transfuse into your mind the contents of one part only each week for 24 weeks, and again, I am not doing that. Realize the meaning of every phrase, and we are doing that. Consult the Master Key constantly as your perpetual help and stimulus. Each time you read the work, you will get a better understanding of the eternal cosmic principles. Tell others of the Master Key so that more and more people may reciprocate with you as conscious adepts in harmony. And again, that is the reason why we do this, so that more and more people come to the understanding, because I believe that if more people understood this, we would all be better. There is no lack, and if we were all focusing in the right direction, we could accomplish great things as a human society, but we don't. There is a reason why we are differentiated into different states, and there are reasons why those different states all have different values and different goals. We have different experiences to have. We have different lessons to learn. But the more people that we can get on board with aligning in the correct direction, right? If we can align our timelines, we can achieve great things. If two or more come together, you can do anything. The more people that you can get to align with you in the correct manner, the more possible things become. I am here daily trying to dispense a little bit of wisdom so that we can understand these things. But I am also doing this to manifest the crew. Now, everybody who watches this is part of the crew, especially if you subscribe or if you are one of the followers on the other platforms, you're part of the crew. But the real crew, the people who I am fundamentally calling into my life, are the people who are going to implement this stuff. I am a hard man to be around because I expect perfection from myself. I understand it is not attainable, but it is the goal for which I strive, and I require that from people around me. I am calling actively every single day for all the crew, the fundamental crew, the ones who want to accomplish this, to come. I've got several different crews that I'm calling. There are the crew that is aligned with the channels, and there's the crew that's aligned with the game. There's the crew that's aligned with the school. All of those crews are being called into my life every single day, and they're coming. It will happen. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult set of topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs and that I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. I'm here to dispense some knowledge, to give a better understanding. And it may not be your better understanding. You may not agree. You may be opposed. That is perfectly fine. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to tell you. These things are possible. You can do them. My path is one way, his path is another way, and there are several others that you can take. I'm here to help elucidate what my path is, and these topics help me to do that. If you go through the entire Infinite Integrations playlist, you should be able to do what I do. I assume that anything I can do, you can do better. Anything I can do, you can do better. You can do everything better than me. And so I really believe that. I believe that we are all co-creators, we are all co-equal, and that the more people we align, the better off we will all be. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if there is some work that you would like to see me work through in the same way that we are doing this, let me know and I will add it to the list. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pit Steak. Peace.